You read through Amanda's email 2 or 3 times, then sit and stare at your computer for a while. While the memory of that uncomfortable conversation makes you feel newly embarrassed and self-conscious, part of you is also encouraged by the fact that she's cared enough to get back to you at all. Sitting in front of your computer, you start to question things like whether or not Amanda sent you this number out of pity, or perhaps some sense of obligation after having listened to you. You question her motives and the validity of her concern, and whether or not you think seeing a therapist would even be helpful. Yet almost unconsciously, you reach for your phone, and before you realize what's happening, you're listening to the therapist's line ring. Before you can bring yourself to hang up, you're listening to the slightly cynical but not unpleasant voice of the receptionist asking how she can help you. I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor. You manage to stammer out. The conversation is quick and not nearly as unpleasant as you were fearing, and quicker than you can say Freudian slip. You've scheduled an appointment. Quicker than you realize appointment day rolls around. What do you do? Well, we can't just go, because we're not normal, in that sense. Or our brain doesn't function normally. Head to the therapist's office, even though you're totally unsure of what's going to happen. Sit in your car, and you're trying to talk yourself in and out of it. Or you go back to bed. Well, we have to go. So, we have to go. You have your first session with your new therapist, Dr. Susan Melville, a tall woman in her mid-40s with a disarming demeanor and patient eyes with the start of the slightest smile lines. She makes you feel comfortable fairly easy, which is a pleasant surprise after all of your anxiety over the appointment. As you leave, you make a second appointment. You're still skeptical about all of this, but figure you might as well see where this goes. The hardest part, it seems, was taking the first step. You're still not sure if and how you're going to tell your family or your partner, but you figure you'll deal with that when the time comes. Either way, you feel relieved that you managed to see this through instead of being paralyzed with worry over it. Even if nothing comes out, you did something you said you would, instead of flaking out or running away. You're emotionally exhausted when you get home and collapse into bed. You sleep better that night than you have in a week, and you're not sure if it's because you were so tired when you got home, or if it's because of the therapist. Well, the rest is still the same, but you spent some time on a therapist's couch. You're having difficulty finding the motivation to continue going to your sessions, but at least we're going. That's a good step. It is early on a Wednesday morning. Lately, you've developed a nasty habit of waking up 10 to 20 minutes before your alarm rings, and unfortunately today is no exception. You lay in bed, each minute ticking closer and closer to wake-up time, and passing on a swelling wave of ever-encroaching dread. Sooner than you would like, your alarm blares with caustic inevitability. You frantically pound the snooze button and then retreat under your blankets, as if the warmth of your comforter can shield you from the passage of time. You almost always have difficulty rising from bed, but today that simple task seems nothing short of Herculean. After several snooze cycles, you decide that you just can't deal with work today. You're incapable of even rousing yourself from the bed, let alone going into work and having to force yourself through a work day. Not to mention, you've snoozed so many times that it would be impossible to make it on time now anyway. What do? You can't just go to work. We can head into work and leave early maybe if we don't feel great, or we can just not go. Whenever I had this problem, I would quote unquote bribe myself with, let's just go in. If we don't feel great, we can still go home, because it's better than having a missing day. So especially because you need a doctor's like one of those sheets of papers that a doctor signs that say that you were sick then and then. So, an absent leave, whatever. So let's go in. In spite of the fact that your body is actively fighting you literally every step of the way, you somehow manage to drag yourself out of bed and make your way into work. Surprisingly, you end up only being about 5 minutes late and nobody seems to notice or care. No, when you woke up, the simple act of being even physically present at your job seemed like an impossibility. You were surprised at your own ability to push on through the day. While you are far from enjoying, or indeed even really coping with the dullness of your job today, you seem to have slipped into a trance-like state of automation, and time is nevertheless passing. Eventually, the end of the day rolls around, and you head home, utterly exhausted, but at the same time almost proud of yourself for having stuck it out. That is very important. Which is why you go in. You still have an out option by leaving early, but you know, if you don't, it's good. It's good for your mood. It's 2 a.m. on a Sunday and you have work in the morning. You roll over to see the sickly green glow of the time displayed on your LED alarm clock and let out an exasperated sigh. You've been trying to fall asleep for over 3 hours now, to no avail. Every time your head hits the pillow, you're overcome with anxious thoughts that wrap themselves around each other. Worries about your job lead to worries about your future, lead to worries about your very identity, and you're unable to shake them off long enough to doze off. Your eyes won't even stay shut as your mind races through imagined scenarios going horribly wrong, which you promptly attribute to your general worthlessness. Your thoughts run too fast for you to come to a satisfying conclusion on any of them. Your room is completely silent, but the silence has given way to a loud static noise, rattling around inside your head. Your heart beats loudly, and you worry it's beating a little too fast. You worry that if you focus too strongly on your racing heart, you'll freak yourself out hard enough that you have a heart attack. You have to be awake for work in a mere 8 hours, and you know that your work is so much worse on only a few hours of sleep. What do? We can't force ourselves to sleep. We can't go to bed. We can't just close our eyes and let it happen. We can't snap out of it. We can't just go in and fuck everything up. So we can go to our computer and just accept that sleep's not happening, which is actually a good idea. Or so you either go to your computer or read something for another bit, and then maybe you sleep, at some point because you get tired. Or what my grandma always used to say was actually kind of nice. Whenever she said she couldn't sleep, she would just lay there, because she said, even though you don't sleep, you at least get kind of a bit of rest, because you're laying down and it's dark and you're kind of getting rest. Basically, it's kind of like just laying down for a little bit, and you know what I mean. So I usually just either lay there and just lay there, pretty much, or I just go do something for another bit. Alright. You get out of bed and head to your desk. Laying in bed with nothing but your thoughts to keep your company makes you feel like you're going insane. The harshness of the light coming from the screen makes you squint as you turn it on, despite how often you find yourself in this exact situation. There have been so many nights lately just like this. As you begin reading a news story, an online friend of yours IMs you. Attic, you're up late again, I see. Yeah, can't sleep. Again. Attic, thinking too much again? You guessed it. Attic, want to talk about it? You end up talking with Attic for quite some time about how you've been feeling. He's always been easy to talk to about personal matters, and yet the added security of talking online helps. Being able to rethink What you say as you type it out and check it before you send it out helps you gather your thoughts, and you find it less intimidating in a way to type it all into a prompt and say it out loud. Attic. I don't want to be that guy who thinks they can diagnose something because I read a Wikipedia article, but it kind of sounds like you might have depression. You should talk to someone about that, like a doctor. You pause. Are you really that transparent, or is it that you've gotten used to talking about your feelings at this point? Your insomnia makes you a little paranoid, but you shake it off. Attic. We can do some research and see if there's a good doctor near you. It's not like you're going back to sleep anytime soon anyway. Might as well do something while you're awake. So what we can't do is, this is just a low night, I'm normally able to sleep and I don't have depression. That's good. Or we can say, no, that's okay, or actually, I've talked to someone about it, which is what we should do. Oh, okay. I'm glad you're taking that step. I've heard it's not an easy one. I know people kind of suck at understanding this sort of stuff sometimes. But there's nothing wrong with having depression. You wouldn't be ashamed to have bronchitis or something. So there's no reason to be ashamed if your brain that's sick instead, or if it's your brain that's sick instead. You spend a few more minutes talking with Attic about your therapy and your feelings about it. He's incredibly supportive, and you're happy to find that you have a confidant that understands your illness and is willing to lend an ear when you're having nights like these. A little while later, you fall back into bed, kitten in tow, and find it easier to drift off to sleep. Even in therapy, you know you're still gonna have nights like these sometimes. It's good to know you have a friend who will help carry you through them. We're still about the same-ish. I mean, it changes a little bit every time. It says right now, it says you're depressed, interaction is exhausting, and you're becoming more and more withdrawn, which we already knew that. You're seeing a therapist, even though you doubt anything she says could make you feel better, and you're not currently taking any medication. It's a chilly Thursday night, and you've just gotten off work. This has felt like one of the longest days you've faced in recent memory. Even though nothing exceptional had happened, a ton of minor things kept going wrong, and co-workers had tried your patience throughout the day. You considered leaving work early, but the last thing you wanted to do was deal with your insufferable boss on top of everything else. You're lost in thought on the commute home, and your feelings of frustration both with your life and the world around you build as you run into minor annoyances like someone bumping into you really hard as they walk by. By the time you get home, you're exhausted, and remember that these feelings were ones you identified as a negative feedback loop with your therapist. These pent-up feelings aren't dying down and are eating at you. You open your front door and stare at your apartment. An overwhelming feeling of exhaustion overcomes you, and you feel like your energy levels are low enough that you'll likely settle into a single activity tonight. What do you do? Reach out to someone close to you, or don't burden any one of your problems and distract yourself? Can we talk to Alex? Or... This obviously happens a lot. Like, don't burden anyone. Like, you think that a lot. And, you know, it's normal, but, and it's really hard to not see it that way. I still sometimes think that, actually, despite meds and everything, but we should probably reach out to someone.